Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode number 18 of the Lebanese Biodiversity Podcast. My name is Mira, and I am an entomologist. Our guest for this episode is Dr. Myriam Lteif. She is a fisheries expert and a fish biologist. She will be speaking to us about cartilaginous fish in Lebanon. These include sharks and rays. Dr. Myriam will be explaining what these fish are, including why they are called cartilaginous, and cover their diversity in Lebanon, how they were monitored through her work, and the threats that they face. These fish are relatively discreet, and I was personally very happy to get this glimpse of them through the interview. So I hope you enjoy it too, and I'll see you in the next one. Good evening, Myriam. How are you?
Fine, Mira, and you?
I'm fine, thank you. So, can you start off by telling us a bit about yourself and your background?
Um, I'm a researcher in the field of fisheries and fish biology at the National Center for Marine Sciences, the National Council for Scientific Research in Lebanon. Mainly, I have a PhD in oceanology with a specialty in marine biology, mainly tackling the biology diversity and the distribution of cartilaginous fish, which are sharks, rays, and chimeras along the Lebanese coast.
Okay,
Yeah, this is just general about what I do.
why did you decide to do this?
Let's go back a little bit in history. I was a biologist. I usually taught I used to teach in schools, and uh, and I wanted to pursue my master's degree. And mainly, I went on to do. There was a major in USAC, and it was oceanography and the marine environment. So I went on to do it because, not to lie, it was mainly it was good for my schedule because I used to be a teacher, and this made me go deeper and deeper in the marine environment. And following my master's, I got a chance to, and I got a scholarship from the CNRS to pursue my PhD studies. And the subject of cartilaginous fish in Lebanon was unique and mainly first of its kind, and it was already there. So I said, what the heck, I will do it. And I left everything behind, and this is how it started,
Okay,
the
well,
field.
that's great. Yes. Um,
Yeah.
well, now that we know why you did this, can you tell us a bit more about what cartilaginous fish are? You mentioned this briefly in the beginning, but can you tell us a bit more about what we'll be speaking about today?
Okay, so cartilaginous fish, as I mentioned in the beginning, they comprise of sharks, rays or batoids, and chimeras. And they are fish in general, for simplicity. They are a class of fish. Okay, we call them chondrichthyans also. So cartilaginous fish or chondrichthyans. And what differentiates them from fish or from bony fish or osteichthyes is that their skeletons they're composed of cartilage. That's it. So sharks or rays, they don't have like bone, they have cartilage instead of for skeleton. They don't have bone tissue.
Okay.
So yeah, so so this class, the chondrichthyans, it's divided into two subclasses. So when we talk about sharks and rays only, or skates or sawfish, we call them elasmobranchs. And you have another class, which are chimeras. These are called ghost sharks, and here they are mainly rare. I've never seen one, but they are in the Mediterranean. These are holocephali. So mainly, what we're going to talk about today are elasmobranch sharks and batoids. which is a subclass of cartilaginous fish or chondrichthyans.
Okay, so
I don't know if it's clear.
yes, so in the classification that you mentioned first, if I understand well, these fish are, well, somehow related, and all of this, all of the groups in the, sorry, all of the fish in this group don't have bones, they have cartilage, hence the
Yeah,
name. And one
they're
of these subgroups is
skeleton.
not, okay, great. And so one of them is not, one of these subgroups does not have many representatives in Lebanon, the one that you called ghost sharks. I memorized
Chimera.
the name because it sounds very cool.
Yeah, we have one
And
or two species in the
in
Mediterranean.
the Mediterranean. Okay,
Yeah,
so they are not well represented, and we will mainly be talking about the others, which are
yeah,
sharks
sharks
and
and
manta rays.
batoids or rays and skates.
Okay, how many species roughly are we speaking about that you can encounter on the Lebanese coast?
Look, there is no published number, okay, but let's go back to my thesis study because I in my thesis I did an inventory, and from whatever I encountered in the 3 years, let's say, of my studies, okay, I encountered along the Lebanese coast 11 shark species and 14 batoid species, or rays and skates.
Okay,
Batoids mean rays and skates. But afterwards, I've been observing the fisheries. I've been observing everywhere the catches, but it's not because we scientists we base our we confirm whatever we observe through publications, but still we did not publish or we did not update the inventory. But in general, up till now, and I repeat, this is not a published number. I recorded all in all around 13 sharks and 16 batoids in Lebanon.
uh,
I encountered like two additional shark species and two additional batoid species following my thesis studies.
okay, and so as you
Till
just
now.
mentioned, the updated numbers are not published yet, and
No,
this
no,
also means yes.
it's plus or minus.
Yes, yes, it's always an approximation,
Yeah,
and the numbers are dynamic. Some species might
yeah,
be
yeah.
found later, and some might
And some
go extinct.
species back in the 1970s, there were some studies that mention a lot of species that are not observed today in Lebanon, but they were observed back then.
Okay, and
Like
so,
the hammerhead, let's say the hammerhead shark. They used to
oh,
observe.
really?
Yes,
Okay.
they used to see them, but now I didn't encounter any.
So, this is like I'm going maybe too fast with the questions because I was planning to ask you extensively about the threats later. But so, what you can tell us already from the observations that you made and from the literature that you knew of, or from the old observations that you knew of, there are some species that we do not see anymore. And
Yes, yes,
okay, I will
like
have a bit
the
more.
yeah,
Yes.
like the sawfish, the hammerhead sharks. Yeah, I've never seen it, but they
Okay.
were recorded
Okay.
in Lebanon along the
Uh,
Lebanese coast.
and so, I have nothing to compare the numbers to the numbers that you just gave us on the diversity. Is this considered to be a good number? Is this considered to be a lot of species
Um,
compared to other places in the
you,
Mediterranean?
look, I don't remember, or I don't have now in my hands the right number of species in the whole Mediterranean. But as far as I remember, I don't want to give numbers, but there are
That's fine.
approximately around maybe more than 80 species in the Mediterranean. So when we talk about chondrichthyans or cartilaginous fish, so when we see around 30 in Lebanon, which is good.
Well, can you tell us a bit more about what their role is in the marine ecosystem? So, are they predators? What do they feed on? What do they do
Um,
in general?
well, they are considered as top predators. You know the
Okay.
trophic chain. And these animals are considered, or these fish are considered as top predators. And you know that at the end of the day, any level in the trophic chain is very important. And any level that is missed in the marine trophic chain or is missing can have devastating effect on the whole chain. I don't know if you heard about the cascade effect.
Yes.
Um, I will give you an example. Let's say there was in a region, uh, for instance, there was a decrease in the shark population, in a specific shark population. And this decrease in this shark population caused an increase in the prey that this shark eats, like the rays. Okay, because sometimes you have these sharks feeding on rays or other smaller fish or whatever. In this case, the decrease in these shark populations led to this increase in the population of these rays. And when these rays increased, this led to a decrease in their prey. And the prey of these rays could be scallops, which is very important in fisheries. You know, scallops, the shells, the animal that live in the shell. This is usually edible and it is important in coastal
Yes.
fisheries. So you can see how this cascade effect happened when we have a decrease in this in the sharks, an increase in the rays or the prey that the shark eats happened, which in turn decreased the so it disrupted the trophic chain.
Okay. And so this disruption will of course have effects on the ecosystem, but from what you are telling us, it can
Mhm.
also have economic effects because some of
Of
the
course,
species that we fish for food will also become
exactly.
scarce.
Exactly,
Okay.
that could affect the food security. So I'm not talking only about sharks or any top predator. I'm talking about any, let's say, if we talk about the marine environment, any organism living in this environment that is part of this big food web, any missing or anything that happens to whether it's a top predator or it's part of primary production, it could cause devastating effects on the whole ecosystem.
Okay, so be it predators or not predators, any
Yeah,
species that decreases in numbers can have catastrophic
you're
effects.
you're an entomologist, right? You work on bees. What
Yes.
happens if we don't have bees anymore?
Well, not very good things.
So it's the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
it
and
is.
also a lot of effects that we do not understand. There are a lot of things that we discover only when the
Of course,
disruption happens.
of course. And when we talk about the sea or oceans, there's a very big percentage that is still undiscovered.
Yes, we still have a lot to study. So from the species that can be encountered in Lebanon and that
Mm.
fishermen see or encounter regularly,
Yeah,
do any of them have common names in Arabic? I'm always curious because there are a lot of species. Do they all get lumped under the same common name, or
of
do they
course,
have
of
distinct names?
course, of
Okay.
course, of course, they get lumped under the same name. Fishers usually do that. Um, let me summarize it for you. In Lebanon, in general, when we talk about sharks or when the fishers want to refer to sharks, and I told you there is around 13 species of sharks. Most of them, like around 10 species or so, they are called the كلاب البحر.
Okay.
That's what we call them. Yeah, sharks. And when they talk about rays, also they call them بقر البحر.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the local fisher names.
Okay, this is
And
interesting, but sorry,
yeah,
tell me.
yeah, no, but I mean, uh, it's very weird, the names they give them. But in general, yes, in general, these are the main names that they use to refer to sharks and rays.
Okay, yes, well, it always makes me smile because I cannot remember which one has which common name because I cannot when I hear the common name, I cannot imagine any type of fish. Well,
Yeah,
uh,
it's like if you know a little bit about fish in Lebanon, you have jarbide and you have dakar jarbide.
okay, are they not the
Okay.
same species?
No, it's not like a
Okay.
female or male. No, they're
Okay.
totally different species. So, so imagine the nomenclature, how it differs.
Yes, okay. Well, I think this is across all wildlife, but I was curious because like this has to do with my follow-up questions. Some of these species are edible, right?
Yes, in general, you can see, yes, some of them are, you can
Are
see that
edible.
fishers usually eat, or you can see some species in fish markets being sold as fillets
Okay,
or,
okay.
yeah.
And so, well, usually edible species will sometimes have more more common names or more present common names simply because we encounter them more regularly.
Yeah, but like كلب البحر, for instance, it can be different species and edible and in fisheries.
A little note here for our non-Arabic speaking listeners. كلب البحر literally means the dog of the sea. And like many common names, it is difficult to know why this name was given. Okay, back to the episode.
You
Okay.
know?
Yeah, yeah. So it will remain. The name will remain.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for all the details on the introduction to the group and for your patience with
Yeah,
all of
no,
the questions.
no
So
worries.
now I'm moving on to a section where I had some questions for you on how do you sample? So you spoke a bit about your work, about your studies, and when you do these biodiversity assessments or when you do monitoring of cartilaginous fish, how do you sample? So do you like dive and try to catch them, or are there any, I don't know, nets, or how does it work?
If I want to talk about my work and how I got my samples and to do this study, um, I obtained the samples through like two different phases. First, there was an experimental fishing survey where we had different gear lowered and we assessed the catch and we had sharks and rays caught in the holes. So I used to take the cartilaginous fish or elasmo branch sample and treat them in the lab. I did the dissection, the proper measurements in the lab from these experimental surveys.
Okay.
And in addition to that, I used to visit fisheries, uh, take records of whatever elasmo branch I can find. I did have a lot of connections with the fish markets. And sometimes I used to buy samples from fisheries to do further studies in the lab because for some species I studied the biology, and when you want to study the biology of these species, I need to get them to the lab to dissect them, to take measurements of the liver, stomach contents, to identify the sex of the specimen, the maturity state, and so on.
Okay.
So mainly this is how I used to get the samples, but no, I did not do any diving. But plus, it's difficult to do. Let's say if you want to do an underwater visual census for cartilaginous fish, it's difficult. You don't always encounter them. They're not like fish.
Okay. So this was an interesting like point to raise. You cannot see them very easily if you dive, like it is, or when you swim. it is not something that you can encounter very
No,
easily.
no, they're not like that. You cannot like easily encounter them while swimming or diving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that can be reassuring for some people, I guess. Although I don't know, I had the
No, even if
impression
you
that
no, even if
yes.
you encounter them while swimming or diving, please, there are some divers that intend to go and dive and search for sharks, or let's say dive in places where they know that this is a shark area, so that they can be able to swim with them and take pictures of them. So they're
Okay.
not that harmful. We don't have harmful species in Lebanon.
Okay, but they do have a negative reputation, um, which which is very similar to, for example, snakes and a lot of other animals that have a bad reputation, but that are actually mostly very chill and will not want to kill you if they see you. Uh, so,
Look, you have species, I'm saying in the Mediterranean or in the Red Sea, you have species that are harmful. And
okay.
especially in the Red Sea, you have species that intend to attack. And there are different reasons, and I don't want to get into these, why these species attack. Okay, but let's say in the Lebanese, along the Lebanese coast, and in the Lebanese coastal community, there is a lot of misconception that these sharks that are there in the sea, they attack people and they are harmful. But we do not have the species that are that aggressive in Lebanon. Maybe we have one species which is pelagic. It's the short fin mako fish, mako shark, and because of its teeth, and usually it's a fast species, it's aggressive, but up till now there have been no recorded attacks. So in general, for me, they are not harmful, unless provoked, of course. So if you
Yes.
can see a shark swimming nearby, you don't have to provoke it, or you just have to swim in a way not to attract it, and not to, let's say, don't hurt it and don't provoke it. Because in general, any animal which is provoked will attack at some point. But in general, here in Lebanon, and you know that Lebanon is a touristic area in terms of beaches,
The coast.
diving. You have a lot of diving clubs. You have a lot of
Yes.
resorts uh, on the sea. You have a lot of people all summer going to the beach. And till now, we didn't hear. There is no reported major case of any shark attack along the Lebanese coast. So, in general, for me, it is safe.
Okay.
I go down, I dive, I swim, I take my kids to the beach, so it's fine. But sometimes fishers, they report bites. But let's say this shark, I got bitten. Let's say a shark bit me. But I think
While trying to fish them, you mean?
sometimes they get trapped in the fisher nets. Sometimes
Okay.
they get, let's say, sometimes the fisher has these nets put and he wants to check on them, and he sees a shark, let's say, trying to eat the fish that are entangled in the net, and you know how it happens. I think there must be a reason behind why this bite happened and so on. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for the thorough explanation. Um,
Uh, for
this
me,
is
for
much
me,
much
there's nothing
clearer.
to worry about. There's nothing to
Okay.
worry about.
Thank you. And one last question I had with this section, which is like everything that has to do with the sampling and what you can encounter when you're on the coast.
Yeah.
Can all the species be recognized at sight, meaning by seeing them or by just having a picture of them, or does anything require being taken back to the lab? to be identified? This is an entomologist's question, I think.
Yeah, I
But
know. A taxonomist's question.
yes. But like, can
Uh,
you recognize everything just by looking at them if
um,
if you know the fauna?
yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, because some species they have distinct features, and you can directly be able to recognize them. However,
Okay.
there are some species which look almost the same. So I either would need a proper picture showing, let's say, different aspects of the, if when you talk about the shark, different aspects of the shark, the fins, because sometimes what differs between one species and another is the distance between the fins, and they look the same on the outside, and there's some like minor
Yeah, a
differences
small distinctive feature. Yeah.
yes, that you need to do certain measurements in order to be able to recognize them. So I would need, for me to identify, I would need a proper picture. And sometimes I will be able to identify them directly. Like for instance, you have the six-gilled shark and the seven-gilled shark. So this is directly recognizable. Why? Because you just need to count the gills. This
Okay.
is one single species. For the six-gilled shark, you count the gills. Now it has six gills, so this is the six-gilled shark, and the seven-gilled shark, Heptranchia sperlo, this is its scientific name. It has seven gills. So these are easy species to encounter.
To determine. So now for the next section, I had a few questions on the threats that cartilaginous fish face on the Lebanese coast. So, do we know of any species that are threatened? You mentioned at the beginning of the talk that some of them were not seen, although there were records from the 90s, for example. Are there other species that we know that are threatened or vulnerable now?
The issue with threatened or not threatened is kind of also needs a confirmation, you know.
Okay.
هلا, there are some species that are considered as vulnerable according to the IUCN, to the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. I don't know
Okay.
if you and there are some species that are considered as endangered, like the guitarfish, according to IUCN. But usually, what they do is these assessments that they do to say whether these species are vulnerable or endangered or near threatened or so on. They do certain assessments that can be somehow regional. Sometimes, they do, sometimes, let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say shark X is endangered at the level of the Mediterranean,
Okay.
but at the level of, let's say, Lebanon, it's not endangered. But here we don't have these studies to say, we
Okay.
don't have anything to say for sure if these species are threatened or not. I'm just saying how they do this assessment for the IUCN, because we usually base somehow on it in order to identify whether, let's say, some species are endangered or not. But this is the main issue, because sometimes these assessments are based according, are regional, are based according
Yes.
to studies where there are some data related to the species. Because as I gave you an example, sometimes sharks, they can be endangered at the level of the Mediterranean, or at the level of the, let's say, Western Mediterranean, but at the level of the eastern part of the Mediterranean, they are not endangered. So this is it. So for this, we need more studies in order
Okay.
to to say or to identify uh, the endangered level or of these species.
Okay, so like for a lot of other groups of mammals or insects in Lebanon, we can use the regional assessments or the closest regional assessment
Yeah,
that we have to have an idea which fish
exactly.
could be endangered. But what you are saying is that in all cases, we need more information to have a more accurate idea of what's happening at the local level.
Exactly.
Okay, what are some conservation measures that can be put in place to protect the local cartilaginous fish populations? And actually, I'm starting this question by its end. The beginning is what are the threats that they are facing, and what can we do to protect them?
The main threats that cartilaginous fish or chondrichthyans face are fishing, it's overfishing.
Okay,
Uh, but usually these species, they are not commercial or edible everywhere in Lebanon. So not a lot of fishers intend to catch them. But you have some species being caught accidentally, and we call it bycatch. We call incidental catches. Okay, because let's say this fisher is lowering his gill nets, targeting certain species, and both we got a shark or a ray in the catch. This is what we call bycatch.
okay,
And you will not, sometimes some fishers, they release this catch alive. Sometimes the shark or ray dies in the net and they have to take it out and let's say try to sell it. And sometimes they catch sharks and or batoids that are somehow edible and they can be sold in fish markets, so they directly take them to fish markets. So mainly these are some of the threats because some of these fish are caught through bycatch, and some of these fish they are targeted directly by fishers. So mainly these are the threats, and of course, we go to pollution, we go to climate change, and these are the general threats that are threatening all the marine ecosystems in general. But for when we talk about these fish, mainly it's bycatch, and let's say catching vulnerable species or endangered species in an uncontrollable way.
okay. Well, apart from raising awareness, what can be implemented or what can be done to protect them?
Of course, decrease in fishing and the mitigation of bycatch. So it's very important to raise awareness among fishers regarding bycatch. And let's say if they get a shark in their catch and it's alive, so it's very important to encourage them to release it. It's
Hmm.
very important to let people know the importance of these top predators in our marine ecosystems and their importance for our food security. And of course, to decrease this misconception that they are harmful organisms. So, in this way, mm, indirectly, um, the road to their conservation is mainly put in order.
Okay.
But
Um,
but the awareness must directly target fishers.
okay. And are there any viable alternatives for fishing methods that would reduce the risk of bycatch?
In general, fishers cannot be argued. And if they
Okay.
think that this fishing method is the fishing method, then no one can change it. But
Okay.
but there are some ways or some nets that might be helpful in reducing this bycatch. Some methods that might be helpful in reducing bycatch, and but I don't think till now anyone does it here.
But well, there are possibilities and there is hope. And
There are ways to mitigate
i-
bycatch. There are ways.
yes. Well, apart from like here directly targeting fishermen for raising awareness, how can the general public get involved in protecting cartilaginous fish, but just, like marine fauna in general?
The issue is when we talk about marine fauna in general, Again, I go to awareness. I go to awareness not only targeting fishers that fish and or fish uncontrollably, but we can target the local community. We can, let's say, explain how we can go directly to pollution, mainly because pollution is one of the things that mainly harms the marine ecosystems and in turn harms the marine fauna, especially when it comes to marine litter, for instance. Mainly, we can directly target the local community regarding pollution because mainly they will not be when we talk about sharks or bycatch, the local community will not be or the general public is not directly involved is directly threatening these fish. If we indirectly let's say direct them towards an environment with less pollution, with less litter, then this could have a positive effect on the marine environment in general, the marine fauna, and of course, cartilaginous fish.
Okay. And here, same question, but for governmental entities and other environmental NGOs. So what can official entities or governmental entities do to limit the
Um,
damages?
Governmental entities could issue more legislations and enforce them to ensure shark and ray conservation. And when we talk about all entities, let's say research entities, NGO, could pursue more funds to increase or improve research and the monitoring of these species. Of course, because this will help get a proper reflection of the populations and probably issue the best measures that will help protect them, conserve them, and so on.
We reach the end of our talk, and to end this, I would like to ask you if you have any advice that you would like to give to people interested in marine biology, who would like to study it.
Of course, if people want to pursue marine biology, then of course I will really advise them to do so. If it is their passion, if the sea is their passion, if the marine life, if conserving marine life, if they understand what the meaning of conservation for the marine life or conservation of the marine environment, if they understand how important it is for the future generations, for the food security, then of course I would advise people to go into marine biology. And they have to stay curious and open minded. They have to be multidisciplinary and integrate. It's not only about marine biology because there's always a lot of aspects and a lot of things going on. So they should integrate in their studies many, let's say, fields, of course, tackling anything related to the marine environment. But above all, they should understand the importance of conservation. And finally, of course, have fun, enjoy the journey.
Okay.
Because being a marine biologist means you get to encounter many incredible animals. You get to know things about very deep parts of the planet and discover the wonders of it.
Well, thank you very much for this advice, this encouragement, and also for all of the information that you provided during this talk.
More than welcome.